Imagine this, three rock legends, Ted Nugent, Tommy Shaw, and Jack Blades, each at the crossroads in their career, come together to form a supergroup that nobody in the industry believed would work. Against all odds, Damn Yankees exploded onto the scene, selling millions of records. But just when it seemed like nothing could stop them, the band was handed a check for $1 million not to make music, but to disappear. Why would a record label pay a platinum-selling band to simply walk away? Stick around as we uncover the wild story of Damn Yankees, from their unlikely rise to the $1 million deal that ended it all. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. Geffen Records A&R man John Kalodner seemed like an expert in reviving struggling musicians' careers. He helped Aerosmith and Whitesnake reinvent themselves, and he had the same plan for Tommy Shaw, Jack Blades, and Ted Nugent. Nugent established himself in the 70s as one of the bad boys of rock and roll, but like so many musicians who were popular during that decade, the 80s weren't as kind to him as tastes changed and newer sounds and bands had taken over. Tommy Shaw, meanwhile, fronted the pop rock adult-oriented group Styx, where he would clash with Dennis DeYoung over the band's sound. Jack Blades, meanwhile, cut his teeth singing, playing bass, and writing songs for Night Ranger, but the record label, according to him, destroyed the band. As he told the LA Times in 1991, Sister Christian, Night Ranger's big 1984 hit, was a ballad, and from that point on, our record company only allowed us to release more ballads, and that really destroyed a good rock and roll band. After Night Ranger recorded their Man in Motion album in 1988, Blades recalled how it felt like everyone in the band was going in different directions, adding, "I remember playing one show in Philadelphia in February of '89, and the vibe just wasn't there. And afterwards I said, you know what, I'm done. Everybody go do what you want to do. This isn't fun anymore, I'm out." By the way, guys, let me know in the comment section if you think I should do a video on Night Ranger. Damn Yankees was born around 1988, but Nugent and Shaw knew each other from one decade prior when Styx opened a show for Nugent in South Bend, Indiana. Blades also knew the guys, having bumped into them at different festivals and shows and events over the years. Shaw and Nugent also were signed to Atlantic Records, where they were putting out solo records. Then in 1988, when Shaw and Nugent were sitting together at a music show business dinner in Florida, it was following that meal, Shaw told Nugent, when it was over, we were saying, why don't we get together after we finish promoting our records? It was Shaw and his manager who ended up calling up Kalodner's office asking for Nugent's number. And according to one report, in the A&R man's office that very moment was Ted Nugent's manager. As for the group's name, there seems to be two origins of how it came up. Shaw told the Post-Standard, it's almost a nationalistic thing. When we first started playing, all of us started calling our friends and saying, you're not going to believe this band. Their friends, meanwhile, remarked, what do you sound like? With Nugent stating, like a bunch of Damn Yankees playing kick-ass rock and roll. So that's one story of how they came up with the name. Jack Blades remarked in a separate interview, we were watching our country take out that jerk in Panama, Noriega. It was like those damn Yankees. Those countries take billions and billions of dollars from us in aid and then turn around and go, why don't the Yankees go home? So we said, let's call our band what everyone else in the world calls us. I also want to point out that around the time Damn Yankees had formed, there was even a Broadway musical of the same name that got a lot of press attention as well. To ensure the musicians gelled, Kalodner took Nugent to the side, adding, Ted knows I was one of his biggest fans, and I spoke always in that way. I told him he was going to have to calm his ass down. So he was really going to have to think about not playing over all of the songs that they were going to do, or the band would be a failure. The early days of 1988 saw Shaw and Nugent jamming together on acoustic guitars and coming up with the song Come Again, which ended up on Damn Yankees' debut record. Damn well I'd come again. Interestingly enough, Shaw was the one who came up with the guitar part, and it was Nugent who wrote the words, with Shaw telling Ultimate Classic Rock he was courting the new woman in his life, Shemaine, and it was funny because he showed up and his hair was all poofed out and he had these leather pants on and boots and he was all dressed up. At that time, Jack Blades hadn't joined the group yet, and they had a stand-in bass player named Norm Daller. And while Nugent and Shaw could tell that there was chemistry, Kalodner felt like the band was missing something. That's when he suggested to the duo that they get Jack Blades of Night Ranger. Blades recalled, "So I flew to New York 3 days after Night Ranger broke up, and the next thing I knew, the Damn Yankees were happening." Blades at the time crashed at Shaw's Manhattan apartment. Blades recalled how one morning he woke up in Shaw's place and was doing laundry, and he was singing the line, "I don't want to hear about it anymore." And Tommy stated, "Wow, what's that?" 45 minutes later, the song High Enough was written with all the lyrics and harmonies. They weren't sure whether to play it for Ted Nugent or not. Nugent was in fact dubbed by his bandmates in Damn Yankees as the Wimp Police. Nugent recalled hearing the song for the first time, stating, "When I entered, they stopped. I thought it was wonderful. I said, 'Play it again.' And they said, 'Nah, it's not Damn Yankee stuff.' But I said, 'Come on, that's the soulful stuff. You never shy away from the soulful stuff. It doesn't have to be the pile driver stuff all the time." Yesterday is just a memory. Shaw admitted that the first day the band started jamming, everything felt so good that they called their friend at the China Club in New York City, asking if they could jam that very night. This was on May 4th, 1989, and the group wanted to see how people would react to their lineup. A lot of Damn Yankees' album was actually written that day, and they played it later that night. Kolodner got Geffen to pay for the demo tape, and he wanted the label to sign the band. But they passed, telling the A&R man that while they saw promise, they felt like they already had enough corporate rock bands on their roster. One thing that separated Damn Yankees from groups like Night Ranger and Styx was that the music was more spontaneous, and they didn't strive for perfection, according to Shaw. But the band also coexisted despite their differences. Shaw admitted, "We're all very happy with our personal choices and the way of life. I'm not going to start eating deer meat because Ted does, and he's not going to turn into a vegetarian because I'm one. We're not running a restaurant here." He added how Nugent and him were the most diametrically opposed people, but they were still very supportive of each other. The trio soon added Tommy Shaw's drummer Michael Cartellone, and Cartellone's audition for Shaw's solo band was quite memorable as he played so hard during the audition he destroyed the drum kit and simply walked out of the audition without saying a word. Impressed, Shaw hired him. The band initially wanted to hit the road and play some shows, but their managers insisted that they needed to record a record first and then tour behind it. Now, Damn Yankees weren't the only supergroup that formed in the 80s, as it became kind of a trend as you had groups like Traveling Wilburys, you had Badlands, Mr. Big, and Bad English. I've covered a number of these bands on my channel if you guys are interested. Shaw even jokingly referred to the quartet as a hard rock version of the Traveling Wilburys. But they also fought against the label of being called a supergroup. Shaw remarked, "When we were sleeping on each other's couches and playing in each other's basements, it didn't feel super." The band had one close call, though, when they were in Blades' Northern California home in October of 1989 when an earthquake hit. According to the members, the floor began shaking, the walls were cracking, and the band thought the damage was actually caused due to Ted Nugent's guitar. With three big names in their band, you would think that record labels were lining up to sign them, but they weren't. Shaw revealed that the band was turned down by 6 to 7 labels initially. The labels had some apprehension. They felt the members were too old and their time had passed, and they also felt that they didn't fit into a particular niche and would be hard to market. Labels also wanted to sign a younger band. Shaw remarked, "These people looked at us and said, maybe we can get Desmond Child to write a hit for you. We just said, screw you, and left." The band's demo tape did make its way to Warner Brothers had Michael Austin, who was friends with Kolodner. Blades recalled to Louder Sound, "After hearing the first chorus of High Enough, Michael Austin, the head of A&R, stopped the tape and said, 'Who's your lawyer? Have him call me in the morning. Done deal.'" The group signed a 5-album deal to the label. Warner Brothers felt that Damn Yankees wouldn't necessarily be a top 40 band, with the exception of a few songs like High Enough, but they first wanted the band to be established as a rock act on radio and MTV. Damn Yankees headed into the studio in late 1989 with producer Ron Nevison. Nevison was supposed to work with Night Ranger before they broke up in 1988, and Blades still wanted to work with him. But Kolodner also liked the producer because he was going to run a tight ship and keep everyone's ego in check. It was during the recording process Shaw was informed that Styx were getting back together. Dennis DeYoung called up Shaw in the studio, telling him about their potential reunion. It was something they talked about a few years ago, but DeYoung was busy with his solo career. Shaw, having his hands full at the time, sat out of the reunion. Released in March of 1990, Damn Yankees' self-titled debut record got off to a good start as the first single, Coming of Age, topped the mainstream rock tracks chart, and it also crossed over to the Hot 100, peaking at number 60. The single High Enough peaked at number 3 on the mainstream rock tracks chart and number 2 on the Hot 100. Despite the good chart position, there seemed to be a bit of discrepancy between what the chart showed and how the band members felt when they were talking to the press. Shaw told the Knoxville News Sentinel in 1990, "Our first 2 videos occupied the 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot on MTV, so all these drug addict night shift people kind of out of the loop were hip to Damn Yankees." The band also fought against the assertion that they were too soft or wimpy, given the members' associations with Night Ranger and Styx. Nugent recalled, "Tommy Shaw and Jack Blades were surrounded by the image of Styx and Night Ranger wimpism, but when I think of them individually, I think of Jack as Don't Tell Me You Love Me and Rock in America, and Tommy as Blue Collar Man and Renegade." Shaw meanwhile added, "My writing is more melodic, but there's always been a bluesy side to what I did. I kind of had to learn to be in Styx." The band spent nearly a year and a half on the road promoting their first album, including a long stint with Bad Company, a tour that actually saw reviewers remark how the openers blew Bad Company out of the water each night. Even though the band was the opening act, their set was typically over an hour in length, and it featured Styx, Night Ranger, and even some of Ted Nugent's own songs. The group's tour also coincided with the first Gulf War, with the band frequently making patriotic statements and incorporating the American flag into their shows. Even the band's backstage passes gave a nod to the American military, as you can see here. The band also sent tapes and posters overseas to lift the troops' spirits. Damn Yankees, at one point, believe it or not, were supposed to go to Saudi Arabia to play for the troops stationed there, with MTV filming the whole thing. But according to Nugent, things were getting so dangerous that they had to scrap the idea. The band's name even inspired the US troops in the Middle East, as Marines who were part of the 2nd Battalion, 12th Marines, named their 155mm howitzer Damn Yankees. Blades told the Anchorage Times, "We've been getting hundreds of letters saying they've used Damn Yankees, the title track, as a theme song." The group had several other successful singles on their debut record, including Come Again, that peaked at number 5 on the mainstream rock tracks chart and 50 on the Hot 100. Runaway and Bad Reputation went to number 9 and 31 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. When it was all said and done, the album peaked at number 12 in the States and went double platinum. Damn Yankees became one of the surprise hits of the early 90s. The band also contributed the song Bone Stripper to the Dan Aykroyd film Nothing But Trouble. Damn Yankees returned in 1992 with their follow-up record Don't Tread. Shaw told reporter Gary Graff, "We knew each other better. We had an identity as a band. It felt a little different writing songs together this time than it did before. We knew what Damn Yankees was." Nugent, meanwhile, added to the American Music Press, "I think the first album was a fantastic album. My only real complaint about it is the overall mix. I thought it was mixed real blandly. I don't think the drums had any punch. I don't think the guitars had any twang to them. I thought it was done real disrespectful to our R&B pulse." In a separate interview, Nugent added that their second record was harder rocking. "My guitar is a little louder on this record. Don't Tread could be right on a Ted Nugent album, even 15 minutes and Someone to Believe." I will say for their second album, the band didn't appear to get anywhere near the amount of press coverage they did on their first record. And you couple this with changing musical trends and what was popular at the time, it's no wonder that their second record wasn't as commercially successful as their first. The album did, however, end up going gold. That being said, they still had 4 charting singles, 2 of which charted on the Hot 100 chart, including Where Are You Going Now and Silence Is Broken, which peaked at number 20 and 62 on the Hot 100 chart, and number 6 and 20 on the rock charts in the States. The title track, meanwhile, and Mr. Please were top 5 hits on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The Silence is Broken ended up being used in the action film Nowhere to Run, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was shortly after this Blades and Shaw did a lot of outside work, working with Cher, Alice Cooper, Aerosmith, as well as Ozzy Osbourne. Blades revealed in an interview with 80s Metal Recycle Bin, it was a good creative period, so it was really a fun time actually. Then our record label Warner Brothers said, why don't you guys do a record? So we did the first Shaw Blades record, 1995's Hallucination. Warner, however, did little to support the record, and soon enough the record label's attitudes towards the musicians changed with Blades adding. Right when the album was released, that's when all the guys at the record company decided that they needed to shave their heads and be cool and all that kind of stuff. That was a real turning point, like 95 actually. In the same interview, he revealed that Damn Yankees were paid $1 million to not do another record, with him recalling, "We're like, really? Okay, we'll just take the check. Why not?" That was how it was because Damn Yankees had sold so many records and we were so recouped. So in our contract, that's how much nobody wanted anything to do with that era and style of music. The supergroup did reunite in 1998 and in 2010, and in 1999, John Kolodner attempted to reunite the band for a new album on his label Portrait Records, but Shaw had gotten back with Styx, and that prevented the band from doing a third album. Kolodner added to melodic rock about that failed album. I didn't think it was quite good enough, and at the time with the 80s style rock, you'd have to come up with something pretty spectacular. I was disappointed in the record mostly because of Tommy Shaw's non-participation. Shaw was interviewed by Eddie Trunk in 2020 and was asked about a possible reunion, stating, "Well, we never broke up. We're all still best of friends, so who knows? It's hard because with Styx we work so much, and to do that, a Damn Yankees reunion, it would mean putting the members of Styx out of work for a while, so it's a tough one, but every once in a while we wind up on the same stage." In a separate interview in 2014, Nugent would maintain that the band members are in fact still friends, but hunting is still a big part of his life, and making any commitment to Damn Yankees would make it difficult to reform for the long term. That concludes today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.